One of the most famous portions in the Torah is the portion of Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, God is our Lord, God is one. As stated in the portion of Eschanun, in the book of Deuteronomy. In this portion, in this chapter, in this paragraph, the Torah talks about the mitzvah of Tefillin. As it says, you shall tie it for a knot on your hand and a sign between your eyes. Signs between your eyes. The Rambam enumerates these two commandments in his law, in his book, Sefer HaMitzvahs, and also in his book for law, Sefer Hayad. And he says that there are two separate mitzvahs. Mitzvah number 12, he said, there's a mitzvah to put on the head Tefillin. Yeah. And then he goes on to say this mitzvah has been repeated 4 times in the Torah. And then he goes on to say there's a mitzvah to put on the hand Tefillin. That's mitzvah number 13. And this again, he says, is repeated 4 times in the Torah. Just to point out an interesting remez, an interesting hint. A Jewish boy begins to put on tefillin when he's 13 years old. Mitzvah number 13. But he begins to put on tefillin 2 months earlier in his 12th year. Mitzvah number 12. These are the 2 mitzvahs of tefillin. Mitzvah 12, when you start to put on tefillin, and mitzvah 13, when you're obligated to put on tefillin. Furthermore, both mitzvahs have been enumerated 4 times in the Torah, alluding to the 4 portions that are put into the tefillin. And that's why you have 4 portions in the head tefillin, in 4 separate boxes, and 4 portions in the arm tefillin in 1 box. So these are the mitzvahs of tefillin. Now this is based on the verse in this week's parasha. However, the question comes to mind, why does the Rambam count the mitzvah of tefillin as 2 commandments, not 1 commandment? Similarly to tzitzis. Tzitzis, there's a mitzvah to put on tzitzis, to have white strings and blue strings, yet the Rambam says they're 1 commandment. And even though they're 2 independent mitzvahs, in other words, you can have kosher tzitzis without having blue strings. Similarly, when it comes to tefillin, you could put on only 1 tefillin without the other tefillin. Yet, it should be 1 mitzvah like the mitzvah of tzitzis. Even though it's 2 independent details, it's part of 1 general mitzvah. Yet the Rambam counts tefillin as 2 separate mitzvahs, and the question is why? Furthermore, a more striking question. We just read in the Torah, and similarly we read this every day, an average of 2 a day, sometimes 3 times a day, in the portion of the Shema, Ukishaitem la'ois ayedecha. You shall make it for a knot on your arm. Uloteitafois beinenecha, and signs between your eyes. Yet, the Rambam, when he enumerates the mitzvah, he enumerates them in the reverse. The Torah says, first put it on your hand, then put it on your head, and that's the way it's done. We first make the bracha on our hand, tefillin, we wind it around our hand, and then we put it on our head. Yet when the Rambam enumerates the mitzvah, he first says there's a mitzvah to put tefillin on your head, and then on your arm. Why does he reverse it? And similarly, this is not only true in the book, which we call Sefer HaMitzvahs, but also in Sefer Hayad, which is the book of law, where the Rambam enumerates the laws in great detail into 1,000 chapters. The Rambam over there, when he talks about the mitzvah of the tefillin, of the hand tefillin and the head tefillin, he mentions the head tefillin first. For example, in chapter 1, he says you should write 4 portions that go into the tefillin. For the head tefillin and then the arm tefillin. Chapter 2, he says how to write the tefillin, how many lines, etc., etc. And there too, he says the head tefillin, then the hand tefillin. And then in chapter 3, he talks about making the boxes. Again, he talks about the head tefillin first, and then the arm tefillin afterwards. Comes the question to mind, this is a clear verse in the Torah. Place it on your hand, and then place it on your head. Why does the Rambam switch the order? Now, the Chemdas Yisrael, a commentary on Rambam, says that Kedushasai Chamura Mishal Yad. The Chemdas Yisrael writes that the holiness of the head tefillin is greater than the holiness of the hand tefillin. And he proves it by saying that you are allowed to take the head tefillin, rather the hand tefillin, and turn it into head tefillin, because you go up in holiness, but you cannot take the head tefillin and make it into hand tefillin, because you cannot go down in holiness. So this is true for the ritzuos, the actual straps. You can use the straps for the hand for the head, but you cannot use the head straps for the hand. And similarly, you can turn, if you have to, it's almost impossible, to turn the hand tefillin into a head tefillin, which again is almost impossible, but you cannot take the head tefillin and turn it into the hand tefillin. You cannot go down in holiness. So therefore, the Chemdas Yisrael wants to say, that is why the Rambam mentions it first, because the holiness of the head tefillin precedes that of the hand tefillin. And in truth, we find a similar concept brought down in the Bach. The Bach, who is a commentary on the Torah in the Shulchan Aruch, he says that the Torah says, interestingly, when the sofer writes the tefillin, does he write the hand tefillin first or the head tefillin first? The Torah says you should write the head tefillin first before the hand tefillin, because the head tefillin is holy. That is the commentary of the Bach. The Bach says that why does the Torah say you should write the head tefillin first before the hand tefillin, even though you put the hand tefillin on before the head tefillin? Because the head tefillin is holier. Based on this, we can argue and say that is why the Rambam enumerates the mitzvahs of tefillin, first the head tefillin, then the hand tefillin, because the head tefillin is holier. However, this answer is incomplete. Why is it incomplete? Because this would be enough of an answer if the Rambam says to write the head tefillin before the hand tefillin. But the Rambam, when he talks about the mitzvah of putting on the tefillin and the mitzvah of making a bracha, again he mentions the head tefillin before the hand tefillin. So even though you want to argue that the head tefillin is holier, but when it comes to literally putting on the tefillin, we must put on the hand tefillin before the head tefillin. So why then does the Rambam again mention the putting on the head tefillin before the hand tefillin? And similarly, in the book of mitzvahs that we just read, you cannot say the reason in mitzvah number 12 he says the head tefillin, and in mitzvah number 13 he says the hand tefillin, is because the head tefillin is holier, because the Sefer HaMitzvahs is not enumerated based on holiness. Because right after that, in mitzvah 18, we talk about the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah. And a Sefer Torah is holier than the mitzvah of Tefillin, because it has many more names of God in it than the Tefillin has. And yet the Rambam does not precede the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah before the mitzvah of writing Tefillin. So how do we understand this? Why is it that the Rambam first mentions the head tefillin and then he goes on to the arm tefillin? We can understand this through the interpretation of the Ragged Shava Goin, known as the Tzofnas Paneach. And he says like this, that the mitzvah of the hand tefillin and the mitzvah of the head tefillin are two different aspects in mitzvah. Because the mitzvah of the head tefillin is that the head tefillin should lie on your head. It should be on your head. That's the mitzvah. Munach. It should be resting on your head. The mitzvah of the hand tefillin is you shall ukushartem, make a knot on your hand. That is the mitzvah, to make the knot and to tie it onto your hand. Now, what's the difference? Logistically, what's the difference? Halachically, there's a difference. How do we see this? If, for example, a person put on tefillin early in the morning, before what we call alois hashachar, before the morning star, which is too early to put on tefillin. But he put it on, and now the sun rises. He already has the tefillin on him. Does he fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin or not? He put it on too early. Does he fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin? Says the Rambam. What should he do? He should move his hand tefillin like this and make a bracha, another bracha. Because now, by moving it, he now fulfills the mitzvah. Because he's tightening it. And that's the mitzvah, ukshartem. He makes now a bracha, he fulfills the mitzvah. When it comes to the head tefillin, he does nothing. Because the head tefillin has to lie on his head. Now it's lying on his head, he fulfills the mitzvah. Furthermore, it's not only a difference of making a knot or simply resting on your head, but it's also a difference in time. What does that mean? The mitzvah of the head tefillin is a constant mitzvah. As long as it is resting on your head, you fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin. So if you have it for 3 hours you fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin. The hand tefillin is only a one-time act. When you make that knot, and you tie it, you fulfill the mitzvah. And being that you're not making another knot, you're not fulfilling another mitzvah. So the mitzvah of the hand tefillin is a one-time mitzvah. The mitzvah of the head tefillin is a constant mitzvah. Therefore, we can understand now why the Rambam makes 2 separate mitzvahs. Even though it's really one mitzvah, so to speak, because you want to put the hand tefillin together with the head tefillin. However, being that essentially the theme of each mitzvah of the hand and the head are entirely different, so the Rambam makes them in 2 separate mitzvahs. He places them in 2 separate mitzvahs, mitzvah 12 and mitzvah 13. And in truth, this concept is also the literal translation of the verse that we read in the pasuk in Ve'eschanan in the book of Deuteronomy. It says, ukushartem, you should make a knot on your hand. And then, v'hoyu, it shall be on your head. It shall be. There's no action here. It's passive. So there's a difference, essentially, between the hand tefillin and the head tefillin. There's another halacha. We spoke about putting on the tefillin. We first put on the hand tefillin, then we put on the head tefillin. When you remove them, how do you do it? What do you take off first? Do you take off the hand first or the head first? The hand. We take off the head first. Why? We take off the head first because it says it shall be for signs between your eyes. Signs in the plural. In other words, when the head tefillin is on, there needs to be 2 pairs of tefillin on. One on the head and one on the hand. It has to be signs. It has to be plural. The hand tefillin could be singular. The head tefillin has to be plural. So therefore, you take off the head tefillin first, and then you take off the hand tefillin. Because if you take off the hand tefillin first, now you're left with only one sign. So therefore, you first remove the head tefillin, then you remove the hand tefillin. Now, based on this, it would seem that the hand tefillin and the head tefillin are one mitzvah. Because we say, when the head tefillin is on, you also need the hand tefillin in order to have 2 signs. It shall be signs between your eyes. We just explained that the Rambam makes 2 separate mitzvahs, number 12 and number 13. Now we say that the head tefillin and the hand tefillin are connected, and you're supposed to have them both on the same time in order to have teitofei, signs between your eyes. How do we understand this? And the answer is that we're not saying that the hand tefillin is part of the head tefillin, but rather that there is a detail in the head tefillin that requires the hand tefillin to be there as well. It doesn't change the fact that the hand tefillin and the head tefillin are two separate aspects, and that is the head tefillin has to lie on the head, and the hand tefillin has to be knotted onto the arm. Two separate aspects. But in the head tefillin, there's also a detail, and that is, for the head tefillin to be complete, it needs also to have the arm tefillin. Now, this idea explains why the Rambam first put the head tefillin in the mitzvah and then the hand tefillin in the mitzvah. The Rambam places the mitzvah of tefillin in the book called Sefer Ava, the book of love. Now, in the book of love, he doesn't talk about love. He talks about mitzvahs that bring one to love God. And he says that this book of love are mitzvahs that are tediros, which are constant, that are done in order to love God and to remember God constantly. He starts with the mitzvah of Shema, which is said twice a day. The mitzvah of Tefillah, prayer, which is done daily. Now these mitzvahs are done with your mouth. Speech is a holy garment. Then he goes on to action, which is a lower garment, which is the mitzvah of Tefillin. Number one, the head tefillin, and number two, the arm tefillin. The head tefillin first. Why? Because the head tefillin is constant. It's about loving God. Every moment I have the head tefillin on, I am constantly loving God. I am reminding myself of God. The hand tefillin is not constant. We said earlier, it's only the mitzvah, a one-time mitzvah when I make the knot. So therefore, now we understand why the Rambam mentions the head tefillin first, then the hand tefillin second, because it's about love. It's about constantly loving God. The head tefillin is a constant mitzvah. By lying on my head, I am constantly loving God, and therefore precedes the hand mitzvah. And similarly, the Alter Rebbe writes that we make a bracha on the head tefillin, not only the hand tefillin, even though there are different opinions whether or not we make a second bracha, but according to the opinion that we make another bracha on the head tefillin, he says why? Shehi chashuva v'ikar mitzvah, because the main mitzvah is the head tefillin. So this covers the explanation of the Rambam on a halachic level. But now let's take it a step further and explain it on a Hasidic level, on a Kabbalistic level. What is the difference between the head tefillin and the hand tefillin? The head tefillin we put on our head, over our brain, and over also the location of our neshama, our soul. And that is, by putting on our head tefillin, we are saying, I am now dedicating my mind, my brain, and my neshama, and my soul, to Almighty God, to serve God. That's my head tefillin. I then put tefillin on my arm, and I say I'm putting tefillin on my arm. Why? I am now dedicating my heart. You put it on your left hand near your heart. I'm dedicating my heart to God, my feelings to God, my emotions to God. God is my priority. That is the mitzvah of tefillin. Now, there's a difference between the brain and the heart. What's the difference? Number one, it says, Tzadikim libam b'rishusam. When it comes to a person's heart, only a tzaddik, a holy Jew, a holy tzaddik, has total control of his heart. The average person, the heart is all over the place. You have emotions going up and down every minute. It's hard to control the heart. A tzaddik can control his heart. But the mind, says Alter Rebbe in Tanya, in chapter 17, every person has the ability to control the mind. Through meditation and concentration, you can control your mind, what you should think. Based on this, we find something very interesting. The head tefillin has 4 separate boxes. The hand tefillin has only 1 box. Why? Because the mind is about dissecting. The mind is analyzing. So, therefore, each portion is separate. The emotions are absolute. I love you, I hate you. I care about you, I don't care about you. I like this, I don't like that. It's generally absolute. Now, the fact that we do find in the heart sometimes details like I like you a little, I like you a little, or I don't like this but not very much, or I do like it very much, and there are different levels in emotions, is because the brain impacts the heart. It's the brain's participation in the heart. But the heart alone, independent of the brain, is absolute. So therefore, the tefillin of the hand is 1 box, not 4 boxes. Based on this, we can appreciate what we said earlier. And that is, it's 2 separate mitzvahs. The head tefillin is 1 mitzvah, and the heart tefillin is another mitzvah. Because the head tefillin has 4 different boxes. It's about analyzing. And the hand tefillin is about emotion. It's about absolute. It's 2 separate mitzvahs. Now let's take it a step further. Even those 2 separate mitzvahs, but we said earlier that when the head tefillin is on your head, you're really supposed to have the arm tefillin on your arm. So he said, because it says by the head tefillin, it should be signs, the plural. But what does that really mean? Is it 2 or 1? In this week's parasha it says, you shall know today God is your Lord, and then you shall bring it into your heart. There's the mind and the heart. The mind has 2 levels, the external mind and the internal mind. What's the difference? The Alter Rebbe establishes in Tanya that the mind rules over the heart. No matter how you feel, you have the power to control your heart. But there are 2 levels. There's the level of the mind ruling over the heart. The mind says no, and the heart says yes. So the mind says no, don't do it, and it controls the heart. Now, the mind and the heart are 2 separate mitzvahs. But there's a mitzvah to tie the tefillin around your arm, which means control your heart. But it's a 1-moment thing. It's a 1-moment control. My heart really wants to do this, but at this moment, I have discipline. I will control myself. I will not do it. But really, I want to. So my heart didn't change. I just tied it down. I knotted my heart, and therefore, I overcame my impulse. The head and the heart, 2 separate mitzvahs. That's the external mind. But the internal mind, once I have the ability to truly meditate and come to the recognition and the realization that this is the right thing, then the mind and the heart become 1. It's 1 mitzvah. And therefore, I make sure that my hand tefillin is on my arm when my head tefillin is on. And I can only take off my head tefillin first, then my arm tefillin, because I now channel my intellect into my heart. I am aligned. I am a healthy person. My heart and my mind work in unison together as 1. This is a halachic and a Kabbalistic dissertation and treatise on the Rambam. But let's take it a step further. And that is, we have a women's class here. And I'm sure everyone is asking, what about us? Can we put on tefillin? Now the Rambam says that women are not required to put on tefillin. That's a halachic approach. Let's understand it deeper. Why don't women have to put on tefillin? And on the other hand, how can they participate in the mitzvah of tefillin? So first of all, women can participate and should participate in the mitzvah of tefillin. How? By encouraging their spouses, by encouraging their friends, by encouraging their children, by encouraging their parents, by encouraging their cousins who are male to put on tefillin. And even more so, for those who cannot afford to put on tefillin, In other words, the family is poor and they can't afford to buy a nice pair of tefillin to participate. Say, look, I want to be a partner with you in your tefillin, and every day when you put on tefillin, have me in mind. So by buying that tefillin or participating in that pair of tefillin, you are actually putting on tefillin. But on a Kabbalistic level, why don't women put on tefillin? We know that on Shabbos, nobody puts on tefillin. Why not? Because Shabbos is called an ois. It's called a sign. It's a testimony. It's a witness. In Judaism, you need 2 witnesses to testify. That's the law. So a male is circumcised. That's one aid, one witness. Women are also born circumcised. So they too have a witness. So we all have one witness. The second witness is putting on tefillin every day. Tefillin is an ois. A sign is a witness. So every day we put on tefillin. When it comes to Shabbos, we don't put on tefillin. Why not? Because Shabbos is a witness. Shabbos is also a witness between me and you, says God. So we don't need 3 witnesses, you only need 2 witnesses. So Shabbos, we do not put on tefillin. Women are Shabbos. Women are on the level of Shabbos. How do we see this? Friday night we say, L'chadoidi likas kala. Let us go towards the bride, the Shabbos bride. In Kabbalah, Shabbos is called Malchus, which is the 7th emotion. Women are called Malchus. They have this 7th, that is their emotion, which is called Malchus, kingship. That is the attribute of women. Take it a step further. So just like on Shabbos you don't put on tefillin, women who are Shabbos do not put on tefillin. They are a walking Shabbos 7 days a week. Furthermore, there's a powerful story in the Zohar that goes like this. There was a king that had a servant who he respected very much, and he cared for very much, and he loved very much. And he told the servant, because I care about you and I love you, I want to give you a copy of my ring, a copy of my signet ring that could sign different documents. And you can have whatever you want and sign whatever you want. So the king gives him a copy of his ring. One day, as time goes by, the king's love and admiration grows for the servant, and he says, I want to give you my actual ring. You don't need to wear the copy anymore. I'm going to give you my actual ring. And the servant says to the king, King, I don't need your actual ring. I have a copy. Now we understand that that response is ludicrous. Because if the king offers you the actual original, you don't settle for a copy. And furthermore, if the king says, I want to give something to you, you're not allowed to refuse. It can cost you your life. Says the Zohar, the same is true with Tefillin. Our Tefillin that we wear every day is a copy of God's signet ring. Comes Shabbos, comes Yom Tif. God says, I love you so much. I want you to wear the original. So we say to God, no, it's okay, God, we have a copy. No. Nobody puts on tefillin on Shabbos. And the same is true. If God tells the woman, I want to give you my original, you cannot come along and say, it's okay, God, I have your copy. Tefillin is a very powerful mitzvah. It protects the Jewish people. In 1967, before the war, the Lubavitcher Rebbe came out with the campaign that we should put on tefillin on all the soldiers. Because when you put on tefillin, the nations of the world will see the name of God is upon you and they shall fear you. At that time, the nations of the world and all the newscasters believed that Israel was going to, God forbid, be terminated and smashed. The Rebbe was the sole voice that said, we are going to be victorious in a big way, and Tefillin is going to help us. And it did. And we all know history. In 6 days, the war was won. And therefore now, at this time, when Israel is at the brink of a major, major war, and they're fighting a war as well, we need to strengthen the mitzvah of Tefillin, both for men and for women. By men putting on Tefillin, and by women supporting Tefillin, and encouraging the men to put on tefillin. And one final story. There was a man who got married, and he was going to his in-laws for Pesach, and he had a car full of food for the Passover, and he had his tefillin and talis and tefillin in the car, and on the way to Passover to his in-laws, there was a few hours left, he decided to stop off and buy a new hat for the holiday. He runs into the store, and the store was not in a very safe neighborhood. He and his wife go into the store to buy the new hat for Passover, and he comes out, and the entire car is cleaned out. They took all the food, including the tefillin. Now, why non-Jews need tefillin is a good question. But everybody, they pulled all the stuff out of the car, and now he comes back into the car, and there's no food, and there's no tefillin. Well, he has to go back, pick up some food before Passover, and tefillin, he figures he'll wait till after Passover, because for the next 8 days, you're not putting on tefillin. After Passover, after the holiday, he goes to a sofer, and he writes a new pair of tefillin right away, quickly, and he puts it on. For the next 12 years, business is not great. There are many, many problems. Finally, after about 12 years of marriage, he checks his tefillin. And in the portion of the Shema, which is Shema, V'hoi Mishmoya, and the Kishma, it says like this, V'ha'aretz loi sitein es yivula. It says in the Torah, one of the portions of the Shema, and the land will not give forth its produce. Now that says in everyone's tefillin, everyone's mezuzah. However, in his tefillin, it said, V'ha'aretz loi loi. It will not, a double time not. Well, besides the fact that for 12 years there was a problem if the tefillin were kosher or not, it actually was a blockage for his blessings. He got a new pair of tefillin, and after that, business soared. Baruch Hashem, the family today is a very wealthy family, and they're very charitable, and the children are all healthy, Baruch Hashem, and well. And this is because of one word in the tefillin that was not kosher. Loi loi, the whole mazel, the whole luck of his business and his family was off. So here we see the power of tefillin, we see the power of Torah, we see the power of a mezuzah, and we hope and pray that God will protect Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, and we should see the ultimate coming of Mashiach b'mheira b'yameinu, amen. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any question, please write it in the comments.